Okay, I'm back. Can people now hear me? I'm really hoping so. Just let me know in the chat whether you can hear me now. Woohoo, we have liftoff. I think perfect. Sorry about that. I think for some bizarre reason, my computer decided to default to an internal microphone in my Mac Mini, which doesn't exist, instead of the one that you can probably just about see here. Anyway, I will go back to the quick intro that I was giving as a ventriloquist act a few seconds ago. Those of you who were at the Q&A back in the winter when I was in Iceland, thank you very much for that. Obviously, technically, it was quite difficult because we were operating using, I think it was 1 bar of 4G signal I had on my phone from this little secluded guest house in the middle of Iceland. And yeah, I think we lost connection a couple of times and it was all a bit tricky, but I was doing the best. This time, obviously, I'm at home. And so the internet, now I've sorted out the microphone, should now work out much better. Thanks for sticking with us. I don't think we've lost too many people. Good. I will be looking in various different directions. Obviously, you are there, but up here I've got some of the questions that have come in and have been sort of pre-listed. And over there's a screen so I can properly read your comments in the chat. I think I found, if you remember the very first Alan Q&A that I did, I was completely overwhelmed by the chat scrolling through too fast and people had to write their questions in sort of 5 or 6 times. And it was getting a bit frustrating for everyone. So hopefully having multiple screens will help us out. So by all means, as we go through, feel free to ask me any questions at all about my work, my projects, career to date, Arctic projects, advice for Arctic travel. Of course, you can ask me about Alan. You can ask me about the Burner project, which is the main thing that we're doing at the moment, and anything you might find remotely interesting about the YouTube channel, however it works. I know that normally people do Q&As or AMAs, I think they're often called, when you've reached a big milestone. Normally it's at the 100,000 subscriber, 500,000 subscriber, million subscriber. We're holding firm at the moment at the old 55,000 level, which of course I'm not at all complaining about. It's a vast number of people, but yes, we've had a slow period, and so I think it would have taken quite a while if I was going to delay the 100,000 subscriber Q&A. So we're doing it sort of at the moment. Winter, summer seems like a fairly big gap. You don't want an AMA with me every week because surely there aren't enough questions on the entire planet to ask me every single week. Right, let's get going. Let me just see what's going on the chat. That's all running fine. Cool. I'll start off with a question that I've had sent in before, and it is actually about the channel. Is the new channel direction working out as I expected? Yes and no. I always knew after the Alan project came to a conclusion that there was going to be a step down in terms of that there were some people who were just so emotionally connected with that lump of fiberglass that we call Alan, that they'll find it difficult to transition to whatever I do next. And it would be egotistical of me to think that it's purely my wit and excellence that's keeping everyone on board. There was an awful lot of charisma in that orange lump, and so it was inevitable there was going to be a bit of a dip. There wasn't very much of a subscriber loss actually straight after my announcement late last summer, but there has been sort of there was like a slow drip down for a few weeks, and then it started to bolster again. But it's been plateau, it's been stagnant. I was hoping that there was going to be a big lift, but the reason why I'm persevering, and you probably won't be surprised to hear that if my videos continue to be the normal weekly ones continue to be in 4-figure viewing numbers, that won't be sustainable. But I'm optimistic because I remember when I first started the channel, I was getting like 100, 150 views per video, and I was going like that for weeks. I think it was months before all of a sudden the algorithm found the channel. I was considered to be a notable creator or something. I got like a little blue thing next to my name on the homepage, and all of a sudden everything took off. And I just think that this is the period where I have to put in the work, put in the effort, and try and reward those of you who have stuck with me with, as far as I'm concerned, better content, trying to improve my filmmaking skills, my voiceovers, all the sort of stuff, until we get to a point where Bernard is a a thing. At the moment, Bernard is an idea. I know that there's a mold, and the mold is the right size and the right shape and everything, but there's just something about seeing a vehicle, seeing an object the right way up, and starting to develop a personality of its own. I think that's the point at which we will start to see results. So I don't want to be a wuss. I want to keep on going, keep on putting the time and effort in, and hopefully together we can get to the point where the channel does. Also, when we're tackling things other than composites layups, it will start to get broader in reach and in intrigue. So is it working out as I expected? Ish. I was hoping for a bit more of a pickup. I was hoping to get back into the 5 figures per video that we were normally averaging. I was getting obviously 100, 500,000 and a million views for some videos, but you're never going to expect to get that unless you're, I don't know, Beard Meets Food or one of these channels where they just have the most incredible audience size. You always expect to have a few videos that really grab people, and then the rest you have like a standard tick over, which you would get from your weeklies. Anyway, we will keep on persevering. Good question, just to get us started. What about Bernard? Have you planned out any bulkheads within the tub of Bernard, or are you going one step at a time and planning that once you've got prototype done? Yes, that's how we're going to be doing it. We're going to be playing it by ear. If you remember, it was probably November-ish last year, I did an episode where I showed you a graphic layout of how I envisaged the internals of Bernard to be laid out, but it was very approximate, and I don't want to commit too much at the moment. The good thing is we can be quite flexible about it, and we can put in dividers, space dividers, and also some structural dividers if need be in certain places behind where the drivers sit, the living area, maybe the work area towards the back area at the rear where there might need to be a motor to power to power a propeller, all sorts of things. And so we can definitely decide that when we get nearer to the time. And the good thing about composites is that you can basically decide to put bulkheads or ribs or all sorts of things wherever you fancy. Good question. Let's see if we have any in here. Do I intend to get an engineering team to assist you with choices? Actually, that question is lower down in my list. I'll try and remember not to answer that one twice when we get down to it in the list. The answer is yes and no. So I have a network of engineers, mechanical engineers, marine engineers, aeronautical engineers. No, don't get any ideas for Bernard. And also a couple of departments at universities where I'm sort of well known, and I can go and chat to people about, in particular, composites, because that's an area where you really just need people who have been in that world for a huge amount of time. I was gifted, I know it seems daft, I was gifted an honorary doctorate of a university down in Hampshire in the southern UK. They've got a fantastic engineering department. Also, I've got a couple of friends who were at the university that I went to, who are currently professors actually in the engineering and materials department. So yeah, I've got sort of fingers in all those different sorts of engineering pies, and I'm lucky enough to have both my father and my brother as professional engineers. My father, you may have seen in previous episodes. In fact, he made a cameo once or twice, where normally my views go through the roof when my dad's in the channel. I think I need to get dad back on the channel. We can do a father and son one. He was a Royal Navy mechanical engineer officer. He was the MEO on board a number of really fantastic warships over the years. He served from the from the, not quite from the 60s, I think he joined around 1970, maybe a year before, and he spent 40 years in the Navy, and the majority of those early years were spent trying to make large machines not break, and if they did break, to fix them. So I could always send a photo of something I don't understand and get an answer from him. Then my brother's also in the engineering world, obviously still working, and he's been across all sorts of areas, defense aerospace, defense marine. He's now working in things under the water, lots of submersible stuff, not Ocean Gate. And so I can always ask him advice about things I don't really understand. So I have a good network of people. And I know that it's tempting sometimes if I'm working through problems by trialing, testing, breaking, making mistakes. There is a tendency, I understand, for people who are just watching the channel as casual viewers to assume that I'm literally just messing around. But I promise I do value my time, and I do put a lot of effort into making sure that at least I've got a short list of ideas before I do try and build, break, and improve. Some stuff you can only work out by trial and error. Cool. I think that answered that question suitably. Drivetrain, this is another Bernard one. I'm interested because of the shape of the hull, if it has wheels, how they will fit into and protrude from the hull. Now, this is going to be controversial. The wheels are going to protrude from the hull. We're not going to call it a hull. It's not a boat. Let's call it the hull for now. I know I got so used to using boating terminology with Alan that it just kind of makes sense. So yes, there aren't, as you can see on the mold, there are not cutouts where the wheels are going to go. The wheels are going to be really enormous, and there are going to be 6 of them. And you would lose so much volume from the internal space of the vehicle that I've decided to simply have the drop down towards the bottom, and then we will have protruding wheels. And you might say to me, you're going to get stuck amongst the ice. I was thinking about this, and yes, there is a logic when you're sledging in the Arctic that you don't want your sledge to be too wide because it will limit the number of gaps in between, say, Arctic Ocean pack ice that you can get through. And the same applies to a vehicle. But then you could say, well, if your vehicle with wheels that are mounted underneath the vehicle, if you have that set at, let's say, 2.2 meters wide, you will still have a gap that is 1.5 meters wide that you can't get through. There's always going to be a point at which you will get stuck, and you simply need to make route choices to go through an area that's wide enough. This is going to maximize our internal storage space, and it also means we'll have really good access to the wheels for any sorts of repairs or changes, or simply sort of getting your head around the back of it to see if there's anything going wrong. I think it would be good for maintenance. It will make the vehicle look quite ungainly, I understand. But yes, we're going to have the wheels mounted on the side. I don't think it will make any difference to the suspension, the amount of power that we can apply to the wheels. It is simply going to be down to a neatness factor. And of course, most vehicles that you see on the road or so on, they have wheels in wheel arches. Yes, there are some dynamic reasons why you do that, but it's mostly so they can fit in car parking spaces and they don't take up 2 lanes of a road. If you look at the off-road and the construction industry, there are loads of vehicles where the wheels stick out the sides of either the chassis or the monocoque, so I shouldn't be too worried about that. Pretty Bernard shall not be, but that's okay. Also see you tinkering with bearings, right angle gearboxes, so maybe some idea of the number of wheels and motors per Bernard pod. Right, the bearings are actually for the scale model, which is going to be a sledge that I pull across the Arctic or the Antarctic. And so there won't be any of those free spinning bearings in the Bernard vehicle. They are purely the 30mm diameter ones that I was putting together for that scale model, which will also be useful, hopefully, when I'm hauling across hard packed snow. The plan is to get a low friction way of me hauling lots and lots of weight across very large, cold, open spaces. So don't worry about the bearings there, although, of course, all the various components of the Bernard drivetrain will have bearings when required. Right angle gearboxes, yes, that's going to be for space saving. That means that the motor can be along the side of the vehicle, and so that will not protrude too far into the cabin. It means I can mount them flat, and that's the level at which the oil is currently designed to be at. When I had the gearbox and the motor made for me, I was asked which orientation everything's going to be in, and I said everything's going to be flat. And so they put in the correct level of oil for the gearbox for that. And then the right angle means obviously the shaft can then point straight out of the vehicle. So good question there. I have some idea of the number of wheels and motors. Right, there are going to be 6 wheels on each pod. That's all the space we've got. We need the wheels to be large so that they can be squishy, and so that we can also, with a relatively low RPM, get a reasonable top speed of, we're thinking probably about 13 to 15 miles an hour. And how many motors? I would like to get away with 4. So the outer 4 wheels driven and the 2 in the middle simply for weight bearing. If we don't have enough traction, you fix that and you put two extra drivetrain units through the side of the vehicle, and I'll make sure that the composite is made up so that doesn't require a redesign. It can simply happen. Obviously, the suspension itself will need to be there anyhow. It's just the drivetrain that would need to be added in if we need more. But I'd like to avoid having it being a 6x6 if I can get away with it. Out of interest, how does what's the terminology for that? Obviously, there's 4x4 and 6x6. 6 wheels, 6 driven, 4 wheels, 4 driven. Does anyone know if it's 4x6 or 6x4? If you've got 6 wheels, only 4 of them driven. One of you can let me know in the chat. Tank style steering or car style steering. I do have a question with exactly that coming up, so I promise I will get to that in a second. If I don't, which I can't imagine I would, shout at me again. Perfect. Good. Can you tell us more about the adventures Bernard might take you on? Is it just the 2 of you? I love it how you're referring to Bernard as a as a sentient being? Or do you have a team of polar adventurers? I prefer Barnadians or Bernardians. Let me know how to pronounce it. Lined up in the wings. I've always got a sort of a cluster of people who I know and I trust who are really good at traveling in the Arctic. Excuse me. This, by the way, is a really good session pale ale from in Kent, just south of London, and it's for a Sunday afternoon. It's perfect because it's only about 3%. Really delicious. Anyway, yeah, so I've always got people who I can trust. Now, whether they're going to be interested in not going on a ski expedition like I normally do and want to use Bernard for the reasons I do, that will come to pass. But there are also people who, you know, might come out of the woodwork in the meantime. I'm not worried about there being enough daft, wonderful people who are interested in getting involved and actually going on the ice. And the adventures I really want Bernard to get involved in, like the purpose behind Bernard, if you may not have watched the video when I explained the gap in the market that Bernard is there to fill. It's for small to medium size enterprises, particularly on the Arctic Ocean sea ice, that currently only have two options. Either you are on a pair of skis and you have a sledge behind you, that's the way I often travel, or the options are now you have a nuclear submarine or a nuclear icebreaker, which are expensive and, as a private citizen, I imagine illegal. So basically the solution that I want to come up with is to fill the gap that was left by the reduction of small aircraft supported expeditions, whether for science, exploration, all sorts of different things. And I want the ability for Bernard to be able to move fuel supplies, and that actually there's a question later on about the fuel supplies. I'll wait for that a little bit later. I want the ability for Bernard to deploy small ski teams or small scientific teams, and also to move fuel around by having them stored in the rear Bernard and then deployed and left on the sea ice to then either resupply other Bernards or to even to resupply helicopters. We can possibly provide a service to those who need to work on or over the Arctic Ocean in the future. So that's the plan. What's happened to, there's a question that I will answer that in 2 seconds. What happened to Alan the lifeboat? So those of you obviously who were keeping in touch with the Alan project back last year will know that we were planning to go all the way up from London, where we began, the Thames Estuary, up the English coast, up the Scottish coast, up across the open sea, I wouldn't say open ocean, the open sea to Shetland, which are a small island group between Scotland and Norway. And then the plan was to go across to Norway and go up the coast all the way up to the Arctic. And I cancelled that for a load of different reasons, partly because I had a slight break in trust in having a single-engined boat offshore with no alternative power source. And we had a slight engine gremlin when we were heading up towards Shetland. That wasn't the whole measure. It was more ultimately an existential concern about the project in its essence. I first decided, remember that Bernard was actually going to be used for an expedition launching from northern Canada and only actually being on the water a few days before refueling on the Alaskan coast and then traveling a day or two north to the ice pack when we then turn off the engine and just float around with the ice. It was repurposed by me because of the COVID pandemic when I bought Alan off my own company, the Dark Ice Project company, after we lost our launch time because Canada closed its borders. We couldn't launch the Dark Ice Project and we couldn't film the documentary that we were doing. And my wonderful team and I had to part company at that point. And I decided during lockdown to basically start working on Alan. And my plan at the time was in 2021 to head up the Norwegian coast and possibly go around into Russian Arctic waters, sort of coast hopping as we go, or going via Svalbard. Now, that was before the awkward stuff that went on in Southeast Europe involving a certain nation, which I probably now wouldn't get a visa to go to the northern parts of. I could probably get a visa to go to Moscow, but you need extra special permissions to go to remote Arctic parts of Russia. And the chance of basically Alan hopping up the coast of Norway and then getting to where we wanted to get to, and then just kind of getting stuck because of bureaucratic reasons and even getting into trouble if I didn't have the right paperwork or so on. That obviously came after I committed to the Alan plan. And ultimately I made a decision in Shetland, which I think was the right one, that we call it a day at that point. So that's what happened to the Alan project. What happened to Alan the boat A lovely guy. In fact, I think he's an American, Russian, Polish guy called Ivan. Really, really, really lovely bloke. He bought Alan off me, and I had a policy that I wasn't going to try and profit from Alan. I simply wanted for Alan what I paid for Alan. So the deal was done at the level that I bought him for. And he's still on Shetland. In fact, he's still in that yard up in just north of Lerwick. And Ivan's working on him to do a refitting. I think adding some pontoons, various things. I've actually asked a couple of times if I can go up and give a hand, show how I did things, maybe help him sort of get a kickstart in his own refitting. But he's also got some other work he's doing there. He runs a workshop, and I think he just wants to get a little bit further ahead before I'm allowed to go and see Alan again. But I'm in really regular contact with him. He's a lovely bloke, very enthusiastic, very much in the spirit of Alan. And hopefully I'll be able to do a sort of a catch-up episode with Alan in due course. I will answer this question. The tank star steering one, I promise I will answer. Thanks, Andy, for saying 6x4 is the terminology for 6 wheels, 4 of them driven. Right, I was thinking about various ways to monetize. Alternative to the usual would be making an LTD, a limited company. You may have mistyped, I'm not really sure. LTD with Bernard then selling shares. Oh, yeah, so making a company and then selling shares. Brewdog is a great case study. They made a fortune. Okay, yeah. I mean, I like Brewdog. I'm not sure their business ethics are necessarily a model. They had the equity for punks thing, didn't they? Back when Brewdog was a new thing, back when craft beer was sort of traveling over from the US to the UK and became a really big business model. Yeah. I think people have got a look very. I don't want to get in legal trouble, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of those equity for punks people who invested in the early days got really, I'm not going to say screwed, but really didn't get exactly what they were thinking, and then Brewdog ended up turning into this big corporate behemoth. So possibly, I don't know. I like the channel membership thing, and as you've noticed with the memberships, I've tweaked the perks because I did notice that people didn't really like the WhatsApp group actually was okay, but most people like to just email me directly, and then the shout outs in episodes, it was just a bit lukewarm. So I've tried to shift that through to having bonus videos, which are going very well, and actually the personalized video updates as well. So I like that structure. I still don't want to do Patreon because I don't want to be beholden to 2 political organizations. YouTube is obviously quite political. It has opinions about what you can and can't do and say. And I know that Patreon got in a lot of hot water for also sort of censoring people back in the day. So I didn't want to just have 2 big corporates and become beholden to them. So that's why I like doing the direct memberships. There is also obviously the supers and the direct donation thing that I've set up through YouTube, although of course YouTube to take a cut of that. I want to keep it simple. I want to keep it clear. I want to keep it transparent, and I don't want to overcomplicate things. There will be Bernard merch, but I want to build up trust and understanding and the character of Bernard before I start doing that. So I don't want to jump the gun and start doing shirts and T-shirts and stickers and all that sort of thing before I've really worked out what Bernard is. I need to understand what Bernard's personality is first. Good idea, though. The thing, of course, with shares is that then obviously people want dividends and people want to have equity in the business. I think once we have proof of concept that Bernard can be a useful, commercially viable prospect on the Arctic Ocean, actually with services that can be sold to governments, universities, companies, corporations, individuals, at that point, we might be able to say, look, if you want to invest in this as a going concern, fantastic. I think at the moment that's probably jumping the gun slightly. Good idea, though, and thank you for bringing attention towards the memberships for the channel, because, God, I really need it. Because you probably noticed that with views being a little bit suppressed at the moment, I suspect when we get to things like battery systems and so on, the views will go up because there are certain topics people are very interested in. But the views are suppressed, which means that my ad revenue every month from YouTube is pretty minimal right now. It's barely covering my travel costs to and from the yard. And so it really is memberships actually that is keeping this thing alive. And I've just spent the best part of 5-6 grand on materials for the shell build, and that's with discounts from the suppliers. They've all been very kind. So yeah, memberships. Even if it's only the £3 a month one. God, if everyone who watched the video just did £3 a month, the whole thing would be funded and we'd be away. And I would be able to. I could even get like a videographer, so I didn't have to keep on. I could actually work instead of having to set the cameras up the whole time. Anywho, Any more questions live? Not quite yet. Right, there was a question here. I read Maybe, which is a book that I wrote, my second book, and it came out in 2012, quite a while ago now. And there was a lot about the times when expeditions failed. You had the Dark Ice Project cancellation in 2020 as well. Obviously, that was after that book came out. How does it affect my career and my reputation? Yeah, it's an interesting one. So Maybe was a book about 3 expeditions that didn't work out. And I thought at the time, no one writes about expeditions that don't just go through a period of jeopardy, but then succeed at the end. Sometimes they just don't work out. And I thought, what if I wrote about that and explained how it happens, how it works, and how you bounce back from it? And I think probably it probably wasn't the best of my 3 books. I fired a couple of broadsides at certain individuals, which I stand by entirely. But the tone of the book was somewhat different to the Long Haul and to Polar Eskimo. Yeah, it's difficult to write about things when expeditions don't work out, and sometimes part of the responsibility is not on the weather or the ice or bad luck or so on. Sometimes it's on me. And that's a difficult one. And yeah, people in my industry, the sort of the polar expedition industry, has got a lot smaller over the last decade because of the very, very difficult logistics, particularly on the Arctic Ocean, meant that there are now just very, very few people doing big polar expeditions. And yeah, I had some sniping. People have always been sniping at me about the style in which I travel and so on. It can be a bit of a bitchy industry. That's the truth of it. But interestingly, it's almost always by anonymous people who have never met me, and so, well, I just don't really give a damn. So I simply work on the principle that I work ridiculously hard and I tell the truth. And if that happens, and I keep on I try to innovate the industry. I try to get better at what I do. I try to make sure I'm on the ice every year so that my skills improve. I don't give a damn if some of my expeditions don't work. There are some people out there who are doing expeditions that are basically, guided adventure tours, and then they dress them up as some kind of world first. So I'm not interested in that sort of stuff. If I wanted to, I could have invested a fraction of what I've spent on expeditions, not sponsor money, but my own money on expeditions. And I could have ticked off, North Pole, South Pole, some famous mountain here, there, and everywhere. It's just not what I'm after. I really am after the journey. I would like the destination as well, but I'm also very much after the journey, and I want to learn and develop as time goes on. So, yeah, my reputation, I don't know. You tell me what my reputation is. It's better if your reputation is driven by those who have actually met you. That's always a good thing. Anywho, I guess we all have an online persona, don't we? And it may or may not be accurate. You mentioned podcasts a lot. Yeah, I do. During my episodes, which ones do you listen to? Yeah, if I'm just alone working at the yard or in the workshop or whatever, let me know if that reflection gets annoying. There's a block of flats opposite. It's bouncing the evening sun into my flat, which is very pleasant, but might be making the picture look a bit weird. Let me know if that's annoying. Actually, no, don't tell me if it's annoying, because then I'll have to move the curtains or something. Yeah, podcasts, a mixture of history, current affairs. It varies. I think sometimes podcasts go through ups and downs. I guess a bit like YouTube channels. I really liked originally History Hit, the Dan Snow history podcast, which I think was one of the early big history podcasts. Then he did so many adverts, and I kind of got a bit bored. And then also his style of speaking got a little bit monotonous. But then I went away for about a year, came back again, and he seems to have worked it all out. The ads are now a lot less annoying. I think because he was a TV presenter before, I think he was used to his face doing a lot of the communicating. And I think his delivery is now way, way better. And I say that as someone who's still learning very much as a Makey, learning how to speak to camera, how to do voice-only voiceovers, as opposed to standing on stage and speaking, which is what I'm far more used to. So yeah, a bit of History Hit. There's also there's the Rest Is series. There's The Rest Is Politics, which I've very much got off now because Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell are insufferably boring, and they just say the same thing again and again. But then there's The Rest Is History, which is actually quite good. That's Dominic Sambrook and Tom Holland. There's then Tom Holland's brother, who does a World War II one with Al Murray, a comedian. That's really good. I like a bit of Trigonometry because they're slick. they get good people on, they ask good questions. And I'm always intrigued about the dynamic between Francis and Konstantin, because I'm so hoping that they stay mates forever, because I think there was a chance when Konstantin Kissin's star was rising. He's a very well-known guy now. Was rising out of proportion to Francis Foster's. I was really hoping there wouldn't be a rift, and it appears not to be the case. So a bit of that. I bounce around across some. There aren't that many good engineering ones. Sometimes there are individual podcasts that I will listen to one episode of and then bounce off again. But yeah, I tend to have a stable of sort of 5 or 6 different podcasts I listen to. We have a question. Would Bernard also be useful for the Antarctic? No, I don't think so. There is sea ice around the Antarctic, which builds. There's a tiny bit left in the summertime, but most of it builds up during the winter. And maybe it would be useful on that very mobile loose pack of sea ice. So possibly something in the future. But if you're traveling on the ice sheet itself, Bernard would be too slow, too inefficient. It makes a lot more sense to travel in a petrol-driven Arctic truck. Arctic Trucks, the company from Iceland, they design fantastic vehicles that normally converted Toyota Hiluxes, I think, or Toyota Land Cruisers, and they're just great. And they can, if you've got flat ice sheet with no crevasses, which a lot of the Antarctic will be crevasse free, you can do 30, 40, 50 miles an hour and absolutely make hay. So no, Bernard is very much going to be for sea ice, I think. Could technically work on ice cap ice for short distances, but would be, I think, inefficient for that purpose, because we're going to be able to only go about 15 miles an hour at best. The gearing and so on, I don't think would be optimum. Good question though. It's just going to be me hauling slowly across the Antarctic, I hope, in not too long. Let me, hopefully without killing the live stream, scroll down a little bit to the next question. What happened to your views? See, numbers are down. Why? You tell me. Obviously, people were very keen on the Alan project. I hope my style of delivery and sort of the bit that I bring to the channel, I guess I only bring a certain degree of something to the channel. It's often about what I'm doing, not just about me. I hope that I've not changed the style or the authenticity of what I do. I think a lot of people were just very into Alan, and some people just into boats. Some people are really boat people. And as I said right back at the beginning, I think it's just going to take a little bit of time for Bernard to develop a personality of his own, and for a community to build up around him. And there are also topics which I know bring people in, things like solar, wind, batteries. They always do great numbers. And obviously, when we actually start going somewhere with the first prototype, I suspect that will do well. But no, I mean, you're very welcome to give me ideas. I was surprised that the views per video are sometimes down in the low 4 figures, which it's pretty tough to see. When I used to be completely honest, I used to get a little bit grumpy, say early last year, if I did a video that went under 10,000, because I just thought, that's not really going to pay for itself, and it's a bit, what have I done wrong? I give anything for a 10,000 view now. They are the ups and downs, the roles of YouTube, and it's the algorithm gods that we must give our prayers and our offerings to. And I will simply keep on working my off, and I will keep on doing it. Because this is a live stream, I can't put in the Bernard outtake there to get rid of the swearing, which does really affect ad revenue. If you swear too much in videos, they might not demonetize you, but you get less ad revenue. Anyway, spread the word. Please get people to the channel, and I will keep on doing what I do. Are you planning any cold expeditions soon, and do you only do them in the winter months? Yep. I'm a winter specialist. I do sometimes do some springtime travel as well, sometimes winter and spring, spanning the 2 of them. This winter, I'm heading to, right in the middle of the winter, I'm heading to Mongolia. I've not been there before. I'm going with a photographer friend, a guy called Dan, that you may have seen in some of my previous videos. And we are hiring a big truck, and we are going to be channeling the energy of a great overland journey. And we're going to have a load of fun. I'm going to film the whole thing. It's going to be really cool. So hopefully that will end up being a great series of videos. A bit different to what I normally do, because I like to generally do things human powered, but I'm aware of the fact that Bernard is a direction on a tangent to that. So I thought doing like a 4x4 trip in the low season when there's almost no tourism on Mongolia would be really, really cool. And someone I know who's a brilliant mountaineer is trying to persuade me quite successfully at the moment to possibly, if I can work the timings around that Mongolia trip, to go and do Denali in winter. I think only 11 or 12 people have done it in winter. It will be obviously using his mountaineering skills. I won't name him because this is a private conversation, but he's a world-class mountaineer, and we're mates. And he would like to tap into my cold weather experience. Obviously, Denali in winter is absolutely brutal in terms of conditions, cold conditions and storms. You can get wind chills, which are just almost unimaginable. And there are lots of objective dangers, crevasses and so on. So maybe we'll see what happens there. And then the winter afterwards, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's a potential that I've managed to get myself some funding for an Antarctic trip. Anything interesting in the Antarctic is effing expensive because you can't just join on to one of the commercial groups where you get economy of scale. And I've been trying for years to get the right amount of funding. I think I might have the underwriting for it now. We'll see. Don't know. Maybe 26, 27 that season I might be able to do, and it will be a big Antarctic trip. I won't give you any details about what I would like to do yet, but it will be something which has not been done before, and it will probably make use of a sledge with low friction wheels attached. That's the only little hint I'll give you. Curious where you might be going to test. That's another question I will not answer twice later on, which was in the list. Curious where you might be going to test. For the practice sled, right, the little practice sled, you can go anywhere really. I could go to Iceland, Greenland, Finland. I've never been to Finland. I might just make it Finland just so I can go to Finland. Apparently they're a good bunch and they know how to party in the evening, so I might go and do that there. The main vehicle itself, not Alan, Bernard will be going in a shipping container. The whole idea is he can fit inside a shipping container, so we can go more or less anywhere. But to limit costs, the right sort of conditions. Possibly Eastern Greenland. They get a pretty good sea ice pack in the winter, and it's relatively accessible. You go via Iceland, and there are cargo ships that go over there through like 2.5 of the seasons of the year. And so I might be able to use that for testing. Going too far north or somewhere too exotic will just be tons and tons of money. And then once we have a proof of concept, we can then look at the second Bernard, and then we can look at mass producing and getting the funding to then actually start operating on proper pack ice. Good question. Did you consider bushings? The bearings look pretty heavy. Yeah, I just need the incredibly low friction of these properly lubricated bearings, because we're trying to really improve on ultra high molecular weight polyethylene runners just being dragged across snow. Yeah, there's going to be a slight weight penalty. They are as light as you can get them. I didn't go for cast iron or steel or anything like that because they would be a kilo each. Yeah, I think they're 0.41 of a kilo each, which is going to be getting on for 4 kilos for a sled, and that's 4 days of food. It's not insignificant. But if I can decrease the friction for hauling of 20, 30, even more than 30%, that's unbelievably worth it. So we will see. And I'll need to make the wheels as light as we possibly can make them as well. If you've got a design for bushings that will be as fatigue resistant, work well in the cold, and will give me the same low friction performance, I'm all ears. As you saw in the video yesterday, seriously, I read all comments in the comment section. I listen to emails, and I'm always open to new ideas. So if there's something if there's a bushing setup that I'm not aware of that will perform as well as a bearing and will be much lighter, please let me know. Video intros might give more of a context of Bernard to set the scene for the technical video laminates. Alan had the advantage of being a completed shell from the start. Yeah, so my video intros do have like 15 seconds or so of me explaining what the whole thing is. Are they not clear? I mean, if you think I could improve on that intro video montage, then do let me know. I don't want to make them too long, like 30 seconds long, because people will get really hacked off if I do that. So I think they're there. There was only the one video where I didn't do that just to see if it affected my 30-second retention time. And it turned out that it wasn't turning people on or off. There was no difference. So I put the intros back in again. I see, that was just a comment, not a question. No problem. I'll keep on glancing over there to capture any of these new questions. That really is good. It's by the Brewing Brothers. They're not. I paid full price for it. It's not free. It's not sponsored. The Brewing Brothers, really good. It's a table beer, so it's only 2.5%. Perfect for a Sunday. What cameras do you use? Yeah, I think someone asked me that before, and I didn't have them all with me to give you a proper rundown. So when I'm doing my sort of high quality, high bitrate 4K stuff, when I'm doing my my normal episodes, I use this. This is a, make sure it's properly in shot. This is a Sony A7C, which is their small body size, I think they call like a travel body size, but it's full frame. So a full frame sensor is in there, and then this is a Tamron 28-200. And I set up. This is pretty much what I've used all the way through. I bought this camera in 2019. It's been great ever since I've had it. I've also got a few GoPros. I sometimes use my iPhone camera, and I've got a DJI Action 2, which you've probably sometimes seen magnetically stuck onto things. It's good in good lighting conditions. It's a little bit more average in low light. It's a good little thing, and I often just stick that in my pocket in the Arctic as well. It's useful. I also have some Olympus, what I call run and gun cameras, which are very good internal stabilization. So if I'm moving around and I don't have a gimbal or anything, it stabilizes jerky footage really, really well. And they're quite small with a micro 4/3 sensor, so a bit bigger than a compact sensor. Often because I'm working in low light, I'm really interested in sensor size, so the picture quality is quite good. I used to be a stills photographer from my teenage years. I used to be always a Canon man. I started, in fact, I had the third ever Canon digital SLR. It was called the D60. It was 6 megapixels. It was unworkable above ISO 400. Those of you who are into your cameras will know that's not particularly impressive. But I love that thing. In fact, I gave it to my dad, and my dad still has a fully functioning Canon EOS D60. Lovely, lovely thing. I still think it gave great colors. 6 megapixels is quite enough, particularly online. I love that camera. Then I moved up into the Canon 1D series. I had a 1D Mark IIN, a 1D Mark IV, all that lot, super expensive, big, heavy kilogram shell cameras. In fact, I took my Canon 1D Mark IIN on the long haul with me, had no video ability whatsoever, didn't even have a lithium battery. It had a nickel metal hydride, and so I actually made my own custom power pack for it because nickel metal hydride wasn't really playing ball with the cold. Yeah, it was. I've gone through loads of cameras in my time, and obviously I've gone through that transition for when SLR cameras, now mirrorless, they used to be mirror cameras, started to have a video ability. So yeah, I've been through the whole thing, and it was only really video starting for me probably mid 2010s. Before then, I was very much a stills photographer, and hopefully some of you will have seen my stills photography of both wildlife and also my expeditions. And hopefully you think that I've put time and effort into those, and that might sometimes leach into making nice framings and nice scenes when I'm actually filming. Shooting for footage is very different from shooting a still. And in footage, you've got time to tell a story. In a still, you've got to tell a story in an instant, and that's a very, very different thing to do. Good question. Microphones and stuff like that. I've got lapel mic you've seen loads of times. I've got a shotgun mic for directional stuff. Sometimes I need to use that more than I currently do. Occasionally I'm lazy, and I apologize. I just use the onboard cameras either in the iPhone or in that camera. And that's normally when you can hear the wind. And it's normally when I'm just trying to get stuff done and I don't have time to set up the microphone. I apologize for that. Maybe that's why my views have gone down. Who knows? What about volunteers? I reckon you get decent turnout. Local technical colleagues might be interested in helping out too. Yeah, in the last episode, in fact, I made a call for volunteers. I had a load of emails coming through. I think I've got more than a dozen people now who are realistically able to get to London or the southeast. It's going to be about scheduling. I found this when I was getting crew together for Alan. There was no shortage of people wanting to come, but it was balancing the weather window. Lucky we won't have this now, although we don't want to do it during a heat wave, otherwise the resin will go off too quickly. Yeah, it's about just getting 2, 3, 4 people and all of their schedules aligned. People are busy. So if you are interested in coming to the yard and helping out on whether it's a big lamination day or even just another day when I need to get a lot of stuff done, yep, let me know. Just email me, contact page on my website or however, and I'm always up for people coming to lend a hand. Also, it's cool to have someone to chat to when I'm working, and it will add a little bit of extra fun and games for the episodes, not just always me rabbiting on. Back to some questions about Bernard. How many more have we got left? Don't worry, I will keep on going until we're done. I think we've got another nearly 20 questions left. I'll keep on going. You guys can come and go as you wish, and there's always going to be an ability to watch back later on. Don't worry. Have I decided on the shell composite layers yet? I tested. You've told me that I've tested a lot of them. Yes, I have. God, if I never have to do another composites layup, sort of flat sheets of laminates again. Anyway, at some point we'll stop doing laminates. Yes, I've decided. The outside layer and the inside layer is going to be woven carbon fiber because it's easy to drape and it gives you a nice continuous good quality finish on the outside layer, and obviously carbon fiber still provides mechanical performance. Then there will be first there will be peel ply, but then the carbon. Then there will be on the outside layer but not on the inside, so we're talking inside and outside of the core. Then there will be either one of the unidirectional orientations of carbon fiber. Unidirectional gives you the best mechanical performance. It gives you the best resin to fiber layout, and it also reduces the thickness for a certain given stiffness. So unidirectional is great to use when you can. On the outside, I don't want there to be toughness layers too far to the outside, because if you get damage or knocks or dents, I don't want to break through to that layer. So I want a bit more carbon fiber before we get through to that. So there's then going to be carbon. Then there's going to be a dial-in layer. You want the dial-in actually to be as far towards the outside as possible. So it'll be the second layer on the inside of the core. Then there'll be the other orientation of carbon unidirectional at 90 degrees. Then there'll be a layer of 400 GSM carbon biaxial. So that will be at the 45 and the minus 45 direction. And then there will be the other dial-in there. You want the dial-ins on both sides of each laminate layer so that they can do their work, taking impact and transferring some of the stresses away from the carbon. And then there'll be the other carbon layer. So on the inside, so against the foam. Let me get this right. Yeah, against the foam core, there will then be a very thin layer of, I think it's 88 GSM glass fiber. You don't want that to be too thick, because although it does provide some mechanical advantage, glass fiber is very dense, and we're trying to go for low weight here, but it's all about adhesion. We found in one of the episodes that glass fiber loves when it's an epoxy resin sticking to stuff, even foam core. So there's going to be that adhesion promoting layer against that foam. Then there will be those tongues of unidirectional glass fiber holding the two sides together. I think that's it. That covers it. So there's going to be 6 layers each side. If you count the biaxial to be 2 layers, which you probably shouldn't, because it actually comes on a roll. The 2 directions like that are already stitched together. Yeah, that's the plan. So it's going to be quite carbon heavy. The nose and the really complex curve at the back where the transom starts is going to be partly solid carbon, and most of the nose is going to be Vectran. I bought a roll of 35 meters of Vectran, which was expensive. Had to be imported from Greece because that's the only European supplier. I'm trying to get East Coast fiberglass suppliers, these amazing guys up in Newcastle who supplied a lot of my fabrics and consumables, to stock Vectran, because it's just magic. It's basically it's a fraction more expensive than Kevlar, but performs better in every way, and critically doesn't absorb much moisture. So Vectran is great stuff, and I think it means that at the non-load bearing nose of the vehicle, around that complex sort of curves, it will be better than using lots of unidirectional, although there will be some unidirectional carbon running all the way up to the nose. But that will be a solid laminate with no core right at the nose. Hopefully that answers that question. We have... Still remembering that tank style steering. I promise I will answer that when we get to it in the list here. Will Bernard have solar panels or wind turbines? Probably not. I did think about wind turbines, but then I looked at the number of them and the weight that they would need to be in order to get enough power to significantly charge up the battery systems. And I just think you'd end up with like 100 kilos of turbines. They'll be noisy all the time. I mean, even quality turbines are noisy. People are trying to sleep. Even if you put it on the rear burner, you'd be getting 50 watts, 75 watts. Just run a generator. Just run a generator. So we're probably not going to be doing wind. I love the idea of free power. I've looked at the idea of dropping turbines underneath the ice and using hydro power. I mean, I'll see what's available. That sounds a bit fantastical, but we'll see. Even during the summertime, solar is difficult because of the angle that the Arctic presents to the sun. Even when you have 24-hour sunlight, it's not very strong sun. So although just to keep tracking batteries topped up, for instance, on the fuel pods and so on, yes, we use little solar panels, not for any significant powering. And I think there are some benefits to that. It means that we will not have the weight of solar panels or all of the electronics that fix onto them, or the MPPT controllers and so on. We can save the weight there, but also we can benefit from having more windows and just more visibility around the vehicle and not all having the whole thing covered in panels. So probably no significant solar on the Bernard project. Where can I test the Bernard once it has the engine installed? I've answered that one, sorry. That was someone who sent an email in. Engine installed, remember, there will be no direct drive engine. There will be generators powering batteries, which will then power electric motors. But yeah, hopefully we'll be testing Bernard on some pack ice a season, hopefully not too far in the future. Someone saying, I don't understand the drivetrain. Is there a shaft and differential from the motor, or what are the stages from the motor outward? Right. I probably haven't explained this clearly enough. There's not going to be one central motor driving all four wheels. Each one is going to have its own independent motor. And I love the fact that will give us loads of redundancy. And even if one unit completely packs up, we can still drive, reasonably on 2 or 3 wheels. So the idea is they're all fully independent on independent suspension. So there'll be nothing getting in the way running through the cabin of the vehicle. They'll all be in their individual units, 4 of them, 1 in each corner. That's how neat I want to make this sort of thing. The drivetrain will be motor, the attached, you've seen the first one that I've had sent through from China, the attached helical bevel right angle gearbox. Now, this is the thing I've been investigating. And if anyone is in the off-road drivetrain business, for God's sake, get in touch, because I'm having a nightmare trying to contact suppliers. I don't get a reply from half of them, and it's very hard to work out how this is going to go together. There then needs to be a long travel constant velocity joint, which then almost immediately goes through a gland and out of the side of the vehicle. And that will need to have the ability to do this, obviously, because the wheel is... No, am I on camera? There we are. It needs to be able to do that because the wheel won't be staying put because of the suspension. So we can't have a stiff, rigid axle going straight out of the drive shaft going straight out of the vehicle. And then that will attach to the inside of the spindle of an arm, which is on a torsion axle suspension unit. And again, torsion axle suspension units are what you often get on large freight trailers. They're independent suspension. They use normally 2 bits of box section, one inside the other, with a very specific proprietary sort of rubber inside. And basically, as one moves inside the other with a movement of the wheel, that rubber takes the impact and it allows very gentle movement. And they're very, very clever. And I'm hoping to have each one set in its own torsion axle. But on the end of that arm that's doing this, you need to be able to have the drivetrain coming up from that constant velocity joint into the spindle, which then drives and turns the hub. And then the wheel will be attached to the outside of that suspension arm. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll do a diagram of that in due course. Have you thought about doing YouTube channel collabs? Yeah, I would happily do one. There are a load of really cool YouTubers I like. I like Alex Steele. He's a metal worker. Obviously, Colin Furs is Colin Furs. I don't know if I'm nuts enough for him, or if he'd find me remotely interesting. He's probably too big to be interested with a channel of my size. If you know him, contact him. I'd happily do some outdoor stuff. with people who don't have big egos and would like to sort of just share ideas and try and learn from each other. It's a shame that Luke from Outdoor Boys, I know he's still doing stuff with his son, but he had a policy pretty much of no collaborations. And I kind of get that. I think he and I could have had a great time going on some trips. I think I could have learned from him and he could have learned from me, but that very much wasn't his style. And obviously doing a collab with him would have absolutely done wonders for my numbers. But I also just find him a fascinating character. So it would have been cool to have done something with Luke, but no. Any other interesting YouTube channels? I subscribe to probably 20 odd of them. So if there are any I've not come across, do let me know. The ones I absolutely hate are the ones where people are pretending to camp in minus 50 degrees. And normally they're sort of ASMR weird camping ones where someone pretends to be like a modern day Viking and they just go and make a little shelter probably about a mile from a road and pretend to be roughing it when it's about minus 10. There are so many of those channels and they do really good numbers. I don't know how, I don't know. You lot aren't particularly gullible. How do people watch that sort of rubbish? Anyway, mini rant over. I heard you say, oh yeah, I just got this through just before we went live. I heard you say the same phrase twice in today's video. Faulty AI. You guys are trolling me about the AI now, and I know it's totally my fault. I did that AI experiment. Was it last year, or was it even the year before? Anyway, quite a while back, I tried to have my voice replicated. I thought it would be much faster to get videos out. I could just stick the voiceover script into AI and get a result. Obviously, it made me sound really angry and weird and robotic, and it was a terrible idea. And I immediately said I would never do it again. I will never do AI voiceover again. I will definitely use it for AI for visualizing stuff, and also I've been using it to run calculations for me. Things like how hot will the air be at the end of this vent if I have a heater of this level. It's great for crunching the numbers, but I absolutely promise you that I will not be doing AI voiceover. The reason why I said the same phrase twice in today's video is because today I've been on a hell of a schedule. I have about 14 things I needed to do today, and I rushed getting the video edited and done. Normally, I run through the video from beginning to end and just watch it before I upload it. And today I just trusted I hadn't mucked up any of the voiceover. And you'll be shocked to hear that I don't do my entire voiceover perfectly in one take from beginning to end. Sometimes I need to retry a sentence because I don't like the intonation, or I might even just misspeak and trip over a word. And so what you heard was basically me not liking the way I had said the first phrase of a sentence. And so I stopped, waited a second, and started again. And I didn't recognize that when I was doing the chops and the edits. And you heard me say the same thing twice. Yeah, you can probably, if we have like a bingo card for my videos, you can take a drink when you see me accidentally get the voiceover edit wrong. Anyway, you got twice the benefit from hearing what I had to say, probably. Will Bernard travel on water stretches like a Sherp or an Argo Cat, or will there be a propeller? Right. So first off, we're not doing long offshore sections of water travel. Bernard will not be a boat, but we will be able to be towed behind a proper boat. And so obviously it needs to be watertight and all those sorts of things. It needs to have a hull that will be able to rise over its bow wave because its hull speed will be very low, being only 5 meters long. We're not going to be doing essentially using water wheels, like paddles, the ridges on the wheels of an Argo Cat or a Sherp. If you don't know what a Sherp or an Argo Cat are, Google them. They're sort of extreme off-road vehicles. The Sherp much bigger. It's a Ukrainian vehicle, very popular and very expensive. Argo Cat's a bit smaller. They're a bit more like an 8-wheel. I think you get 6-wheel ones, like an all-terrain vehicle, and they kind of very slowly paddle their way across water by just spinning their wheels, and it's very power intensive and not very effective, and the steering is difficult. So I guess you probably could do that with our wheels for a short distance, but I won't be focusing on that. For short wades or for short crossings of water, say from ice pack to ice pack, we will have a propeller. Or for going up leads between pack ice, it's far easier to use that than it is to travel on the wheels. It's much more efficient. And so, yeah, I'm planning to use the same sort of motor. The whole point is we'll have a spare motor. I want to have as much similarity of gear across all the vehicles and within the vehicles as possible, so that if something breaks, we can swap something in. So probably the spare motor from each Bernard will be sitting at the back and will be ready to simply spin a direct drive propeller down in the water, which you can just remove when it's not being used. So yeah, there will be a low speed, high thrust propeller out the back off the transom of a Bernard. Good question. That will be a good time for me to answer that question on skid steer. Yeah, we're not having steering comme ça. I've looked at all the different types of proper rack steering, and it's a lot of stuff to break. I gather that a whole load of the Arctic vehicles, like the Burlak and the Himalaya, for instance, spent a lot of time not going anywhere, lying underneath their vehicle with a welding torch or with, you know, spanners and all sorts of things, trying to fix steering. I want to make things as simple as possible. And so, yes, I know it's a little bit awkward doing skid steer, but an awful lot of vehicles do skid steer. A lot of huge construction and all-terrain vehicles use skid steer, and of course, tanks. And so, yeah, we'll just use differential power and braking on both the sides in order to change direction. Hopefully, we'll be traveling more or less in a straight line for substantial periods of time, where we just have all four of the power levers up at the same level. Good question there. This is a question. Oh, got some question. Maybe a collaboration with Robert Murray Smith. Don't know him. I'll search him and see what we think. Also, remember that they would have to agree to it as well as me. Maybe I'm a bit of a Marmite character. Who knows? Or maybe they'll be absolutely dying to get onto the channel. We'll see. Do I have a normal job as well? And did I go to university? No, I don't have a normal job as well. This is what I do. Expeditions are my main thing. Obviously, YouTube is a natural branch off from that work. I did a little bit of guiding in the Arctic when I was in my early mid-20s. Didn't really enjoy it. Lovely team. We skied across Greenland together. Everyone got across. Everyone was very happy. Big success. But the money's not great. It's not very scalable. It takes up time in the seasons when I like to be doing my own trips. So I know that's not a normal job, but that actually involved me working for a guiding company. Don't do that anymore. My bread and butter is speaking. You will probably have guessed that I quite like talking. And so I do a lot of on-stage private events where I speak. And that's lots and lots of fun. And obviously I have my book revenue. I still get royalty checks from my photographic collection. Every month they cut me a check. So that's really cool too. And when I have big projects going on, I normally have a financial deal with companies through sponsors in order to pay my way. So a whole load of different ways of doing things. I was also the executive producer of the documentary that we're making for the Dark Ice Project. And I think there's a question about the Dark Ice Project in a second. I'll explain what that was. Let me just check if there was a question about that. Oh, no, there wasn't. Dark Ice Project was the North Pole expedition that I was planning just before COVID. And so I set up that system so that I would benefit financially from the documentary, not just get paid for the time I put into it. So I own the IP as well. I own the trademark and so on for Dark Ice Project. And so there are different ways of leveraging things financially so I can do this for a living. No, I'm not a lawyer or an accountant or a teacher or something like that behind the scenes. No, this is what I do. It's what I've dedicated my life to doing, and I'm very lucky to do so. Did I go to university? Yes, I studied biological sciences and absolutely loved it. It was a really fun degree. I had a couple of foibles about the degree itself. I thought some of it, given the fact that it was a pretty prestigious university, which I worked very hard to get into, I thought some of it was a little bit parrot fashion learning, and I was hoping for a little bit more debate style learning. And yeah, the style of the degree I wasn't absolutely over the moon about, but maybe as an undergraduate I was expecting too much. Who knows? Yeah, biological sciences, and my particular interest was in evolution, systematics, and ethology, which is the study of animal behavior through the perspective of evolution. So I was interested in that. My dissertation was all about wolf behavior. I went to study the pack of wolves in the US for a few months to see how their tail heights relate to their dominance in a pack, which was it was one of the best things I've ever done. I was 19 years old. Was absolutely staggered that when we finally got out of the woods once or twice and tried to go to the pub, that at 19 I wasn't able to drink, which was for a European is absolutely cataclysmic. Anyway, right. What's my training like for expeditions? I'm a runner. I love running. The problem is with running is that you find it then harder to keep on strength and muscle. So luckily, a very long time ago, I went through training with the as an officer in the Royal Marines, and they teach you how to be fast, fit, agile, and strong. And I've kept that principle in my training ever since. So it's obviously a combination of I spend a lot of time on the bike as well. It's good for your joints. Polar skiing is very good for your joints because it's very low impact, but I do run an awful lot of miles, which means I can eat lots of food and drink beer. And I spend some time in the gym, normally more gym work before an expedition where you're on sea ice because you're yanking sledges up and over things as opposed to just skiing with your back and your legs across a wide open expanse. So a whole variety of things. I did a fair amount of rowing, kayaking, and triathlon when I was at uni in my 20s, but there's a limit to how many things you can dedicate your time to. I've been running in some of the clubs and stuff near me in London, which is sociable as well, because there's a point at which running on your own can get a little bit boring. It's nice to have someone to chase as well. Why have I not written a book in years? I need some really good new material. Obviously, I was hoping that Dark Ice would be the next book, and I'd actually started writing the book as it was going along. Yeah, I need some really big story that's going to grab people. And even if little expeditions go well and they're interesting and stuff, you need a lot of material for a book. I also was looking to write a book on dogs, and I still am. The publishing industry is stuck in the 19th century and couldn't possibly understand that someone like me would want to write a book about something that isn't the Arctic. So my literary agent, who I got rid of because he was effing useless, struggled to get anyone interested in it, even though I thought it was a really good idea. The working title was Betrayal, and it was basically about how we have completely, from the Victorian era onwards, messed up the breeding of dogs to create anxious, unsuitable dogs that are physiologically messed up, can't breathe properly, bark for no reason when barking is not particularly useful, and dogs don't need to bark at each other to communicate. And I basically want to talk about how we've messed them up and about how we can fix dogs. Anyway, that's an interesting thing for me. I'd like to write a book on that. And I've written about a third of it already, but I stopped because I couldn't get a publishing deal for it. Do I have any training or where you learn about these? Do I have any engineering training, or how did I learn about how to do things? You're very kind in insinuating, whoever wrote that. I'll check who emailed that to me. Insinuating that I know what I'm doing. I've learned a lot of it as I've been going along. You won't see this obviously on the episodes, but I do a huge amount of reading and research. I don't just stick my finger in the air and go, oh, I'll try this today. I really do put the time in. And I know some of you think I'm just tinkering and messing around with things, but I do work hard on trying to understand how these things operate and the best way to do things. As I said, I studied biology originally, but I do have this network of engineers around me. So I just try and pick things up as I go along. And then if I'm in a particular mini project, I will then research that one in particular. Yes, family are a big help there. Back to Bernard. We've got 4 more questions left, and feel free to take any extra ones down there. Wow, we'll be going for over an hour. I think the last one that we did in Iceland was about an hour and a half, or maybe I remember wrongly. Anyway, there's no need to try and break the record, but we will keep on going until there are no more questions. How will I suspend the shell of the vehicle off the wheels, and surely not off the foam core laminate? Well, I mentioned the drivetrain and the fact that we're using torsion axle suspension. So that's answered that bit about how physically the wheels will attach to the shell. But you're probably thinking, hold on, this is a skin of carbon fiber and bits and bobs, and then a core, and then another bit of carbon fiber. Surely you can't just bolt the suspension onto that. And no, you're absolutely right. So across those 3 sections, the 3 points along the side where the wheels are going to be mounted, where the suspension goes on, there is going to be a very thick rib of laminate running all the way from one top all the way under that shape and then up the other side. That will help for rigidity and resist bending, but it'll also give me a really good solid piece of solid laminate to bolt things onto. And I'm going to over-engineer that. It's going to be the equivalent of millimeters and millimeters of steel, but obviously in composites. And that will give me something to bolt that onto, incredibly high compressive strength so that it won't move or shift, and that should be able to take the load. Each wheel will need to take 300 to 400 kilos each, which is actually not a huge amount, much less than a car needs to deal with. But there'll be times maybe when a couple of wheels are up in the air and not being loaded up at all, so that other wheels will need to take a little bit of that extra weight. So that needs to be taken. If you're going to over-engineer this lightweight shell in an area, that's where you want to over-engineer it. Good question. What batteries are we using? We are going to be going for a 48-volt system that suits the motor that I've had built, and 48 is a really nice halfway house between being too low voltage that you need really high currents to run through the wires, or being too high voltage and it starts becoming dangerous. It's a really nice spot. Although that's going to be the nominal voltage, because we're going to be going with sodium-ion batteries, which you can now get in large format 24 and 48 volt power packs. We are going to be going with sodium. It is a great. I'm really going to be putting my my vote behind sodium. I know it's an emerging battery type, but I think it's great, and I hope that the prices of sodium batteries will come down. It's great in the cold, great performance, great charging, great cycle life. It's just awesome. So we'll be going for sodium-ion batteries, some big sets of 200 amp hour batteries, and we'll see how we get the balance right between the generators having time to charge them up versus constant loading all day. We don't carry too many batteries. We don't want to carry too few batteries and have to stop every couple of hours to let them charge up again from the generators. We want to get the balance right, because although the batteries will only weigh 20 or 30 kilos each, that really adds up if you have some for each motor. And of course they need a controller. Everything weighs something, and so sodium ion batteries. I mentioned the voltage. I said it was just a 48 volt nominal. Because of the nature of sodium ion, when they're full, being slightly higher in voltage, it will actually be up in the 50s, in the low 50s when it's absolutely fully charged. And that's why I in fact went for not a 48 volt controller, but a 72 volt controller, which can actually deal all the way down to 36 volts. But it can also deal with that extra headroom at the top end. The 48 volt electronic speed controller for the motor would have struggled. I've not really shown you them that in too much detail in the episodes yet. They're from a company called Kelly Controllers. What are the white balls you showed an AI picture of on the Arctic ice? Yeah, I mentioned this whole fuel storage thing. That was a question that I'll start in 2 seconds. Yeah, the idea of storing fuel amongst the Arctic sea ice without the fuel getting crushed by moving sea ice is an idea I really want to innovate. And I've got these big white spheres, which will be composite, and inside there'll be bladders of fuel, whether it's Jet A1 for a helicopter, or whether it's HVO fuel for our engines for a Bernard vehicle. I love the idea, and then having a beacon on top, solar powered beacon, so you always know where they are floating around in the Arctic Ocean. I love the idea of creating a network of safe fuel storage for use and for sale, and for helping logistics for not just my projects but other people's. So that's what those white balls are. They will be about 6-7 foot diameter, so not too big, and you'll be able to store the shells broken down inside the rear storage area of the rear Bernard once you take them to the location, and then you put the bladders of fuel inside them. Final question from here is, how will you heat Bernard? Right, there's going to be heat coming. There will obviously be all generating lots of heat in there, and that will keep the rear Bernard nice and warm, but I'll move some of that heat to the front. I'm currently umming and ahhing. I wanted to avoid a fluid heating circuit, because fluids leak, they're under pressure, there's pumps and all sorts of stuff like that. I wanted to, I was kind of a bit angsty about going down the fluid central heating plan, because it needs to be able to transfer from the rear Bernard across the gap, across the coupling to the front Bernard. But of course, fluids are by far the most efficient way of transferring heat. So umming and ahhing about that. It would need to be in some form of spiral, and there would need to be a fail-safe against leakage. What fluid would it be? That will be a small series to work out how that's going to work. The other option is simply to heat up air around maybe a copper coil that runs around all the exhaust pipes and all the heat generating parts of the engines, and then pump that hot air through a heat exchanger so you don't get any fumes in, then pump that into the front cabin to keep that warm. How effective that is, I don't know, because obviously air is so much of a thermal insulator as opposed to a thermal conductor. We shall see. Any ideas? Always very willing to hear them. Oh, someone literally asked, how will you have heat inside? Wow, that was good timing. Good. I'm glad that someone thinks the 48 volts is a great one to use. I agree. Sodium ion, is that new CATL, yes, they're a company who are making their type. What I've noticed is that there's about 4 or 5 companies all developing sodium batteries at the moment, and they're all using quite fundamentally different chemistries and different manufacturing processes. They're not all just copying each other. I don't know if there are patents involved, but they do seem to be going off in lots of different branching directions. And it may well be a bit like if you remember when there was competition for different types of DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, that some of them they got backed by different companies like Philips and Sony, but some of them just never went anywhere. Maybe all of them will end up with a dead end, apart from one company that just gets it right. At the moment, I'm just going with the basic sodium ion cells that that will fill up these large ready-made sort of box batteries that people are selling. I'm not entirely sure who makes those cells, and I should do an open box at some point to make sure I know exactly what I'm buying. But yeah, I actually reached out. I'm not an American, I'm a Brit, we don't say reached out. I contacted all the sodium ion companies to basically say, hey, let's talk, let's chat, let's try and develop something, let's try and test, let's field test. I'd love to get involved and collaborate. Absolutely nothing back. So that's a shame. If anyone works in the sodium ion battery industry, give them a shake, give them a shout, and tell them that Alex wants to get involved, or tell them to run a mile, whichever one you think is wise. Okay, we've got to the end of my pre-sent questions. We've got through all the members' questions. Thank you to members for being members, and for those of you who are watching, any level of membership will be massively, massively appreciated. And of course, another mention that I am looking for actually on-site volunteers to help during some of the laminating sessions. That's my plea to the community. Anything new coming up on Arguably? The Greenland episodes were interesting. Thank you. Yeah, the first Greenland episode on my other channel, Arguably, which is more of a discussion and debate channel. Yeah, the one with David got 85,000 views. My follow-up didn't do quite so well, so obviously I just hit the algorithm right at the perfect moment with the whole Trump Greenland thing at the time. Yeah, I've realized that basically the algorithm doesn't like me over there at the moment because I don't post enough. You need to be able to post at least once a fortnight, otherwise the algorithm absolutely tanks you. And I can't do hour-long deep dives when I'm doing this channel as well, which this is my priority. And so I've actually got like 6 scripts now pretty much ready to go, but they're all a lot shorter. These are going to be 8 to 12 minute ones, which might then need to be later on expanded upon if it really interests people. But there'll be more me posing questions and giving my initial thoughts, rather than me doing like a fully researched, fully referenced either take down a whim half or this, that, and the other. So yeah, I'll be doing shorter ones. I also like to do those ones on location in cool places like castles and Stuga in Sweden and various other places. I didn't just want to do them all here on the sofa. Maybe I should. And there were some local pubs that I frequent, and they can also let me have some space there, just to have a bit of variation in background. I didn't like having a fake YouTube studio appearance in those early Arguably episodes, and so I got rid of that because they just look stupid and cliched and rubbish. So I will do some more Arguably, and thank you for saying that you enjoyed them, because I put a lot of work into those Arguablys, and it's very frustrating when your channel hasn't trended yet, it hasn't been picked up by the algorithm, your numbers are low, and it's just kind of like, why can't this work? But I'm pleased I persevered with this channel, and it's done me very well since, and I've really enjoyed creating this community, even though it's slightly irritable at times. But actually, on the whole YouTube thing, of all the social media platforms, if you call it a social media platform, I think actually it's by far the most positive that I've ever been on, certainly far more than Twitter or Instagram or whatever. And the likes ratios on my videos are normally up at like 99.6% likes, and so you lot are a good bunch. Thank you. I do appreciate it. I know I'm a bear with a sore head sometimes, but I really do appreciate the fact that you guys, with all the thousands of videos that you could watch, you take out a little bit of time to watch mine. I do appreciate it. I do have a soul and a heart somewhere in there, and it does genuinely matter to me, and particularly when I get emails from people who have said that my videos have cheered them up when things have been going badly. I'm not a comedian, but clearly my videos offer something. Anyway, we have another question from Ron. Can I do a video on how to make a VBL for a sleeping bag? Yes, I could probably tie that into a video that I'm planning to do soon, because I'm planning to try and completely innovate how I sleep in the cold. And I mean really innovate, totally turn it on its head. I'm going to be doing a video on that, probably a 2 or 3 part series within the next 2 months. What I'll do is I'll tag that on at the beginning. I'll show you how I made my VBL. You can buy the vapor barrier liner. For those who don't know, it's basically a plastic bag that you sleep inside to stop your moisture getting into your sleeping bag and ruining it. I decided the ones off the shelf are useless because they're just coated nylon, which leaches water through really, really easily. And so, yeah, I'll mention how I make my VBLs, because although I'm going to be trying to change my system entirely, a VBL inside a sleeping bag still does work, and it's a great system if you want to keep your sleeping bag in good nick. Thanks for that. Why do I use flexi bindings and not clip bindings like the Norwegians? Right, so Norwegians, or lots of skiers tend to use clip-in bindings for their cross-country skis. It severely limits the skis that you can use. There are very few. I think there's only one set of fully flexibly soled polar ski boots that can fit onto triple end bindings or so on for long distance skiing. And the Norwegians, I've got lots of Norwegian friends, and they're lovely, and they're fantastic skiers. They're better skiers than I am, but they really do get stuck in their ways, and they can be a bit dismissive of anything that's not the right Norwegian way. And I've seen a lot of Norwegians, and they won't publicize this, with the back of their heels hanging off with bare flesh, and they have an awful time with their feet. I've never had a single blister ever on an expedition, and I use soft boots, and that limits the sorts of bindings that you can use. So yeah, in the past I used Ice Trek, a guy called Eric Phillips over in Australia, very, very talented and innovative and experienced polar guide. He made his flexi bindings. They're not too expensive. They're great. They work with pretty much any single type of boot. They're not technical. You couldn't ski downhill in them. You'd fall over immediately, but they're not designed to be. And yeah, I look further afield than Scandinavia when it comes to techniques and ideas, and I love soft boots. And you probably noticed that in some of my episodes, I showed you some of the bindings that I made myself, which are composite, with still using ultra high molecular weight polyethylene to get the flexi bit in, but I actually made some carbon cages for my boots as well, which I really like. I had a couple of rivets break on my flexis. That's not throwing shade at Eric Phillips, but sometimes rivets break, and the bindings were very, very hard to fix in the field, and so I wanted to try and come up with a shell that was all a monocoque shell for my boot, which did not require mechanical fixing. That was the reason. Cool. I think that might be. There was a message retracted. Hopefully that wasn't a wondrous display of trolling right at the end, although that would be rather fitting. No, you were sending nice messages earlier, so I'm sure it was simply a question that has already been answered. Anywho, on that enormously positive note, I will leave another 10 seconds before I decide to call an end to proceedings. Thank you so much for watching. Those of you who are literally live now, and those of you who will hopefully, hundreds of thousands of you, which will hopefully watch this video later on once it's set. I'll keep the live chat thing. I click a button that basically says, as people watch it later on, the live chat will flow through as it did naturally, so everyone will be able to read your questions and your comments and things as we've gone through. I hope the picture quality has not been too bad. I know this is just a webcam. I should probably find a cleverer way of doing this in the future, but hopefully it was clear enough. And you can see behind me that there's my wonderful map from, where's my finger going? There. That's a wonderful old map of the top of the world, of the North Pole and Northern Greenland, before people knew where anything was. And it's just amazing to think what they thought the top of the world looked like back about 300 or 400 years ago. It's pretty cool. And I remember when I was doing my Arguably episodes in that corner of the room in my fake YouTube studio, people were reading which titles of books I had on my bookshelf. So I'm surprised I've not been asked questions about my books. 2 more questions. There's me whittering on. Would you ever want to do an expedition in Antarctica? Yeah, if you weren't here earlier, absolutely yes. potentially got funding for one, not this winter coming up, but the one after. So I will have to get confirmation before I can go public on that, because there's a lot of commercial stuff going on around it. But yes, Antarctica. Was late when first help needed. That's the first question I've not understood. Maybe that was a typo. Was late when first help needed. Am I being daft, or no? I think that might have been a typo. Sorry, Ogie. If you want to re-ask that question either in an email or via DM or whatever, I will answer that directly, because I hate for the final question posed to be one I can't answer. But yes, I don't understand what that means. Guys and girls, thanks so much for this this afternoon. And so yeah, it's been a fun one. And also I apologize for not having my microphone working at the beginning. Hopefully people survived through to the minute later when I managed to get that plugged in and working. Oh, I've got a final question I will do, and then I will log off. How do polar explorers make money without a 9-to-5 job? Well, I mentioned there are things through the job itself that enables you to make money. Normally, sponsors don't pay you directly. Sometimes you can get some sort of like a mini salary that comes from sponsors, but normally they just pay the running costs of the expedition. Mostly, polar explorers through history have lectured, have written, have made films. They go through the communication avenues. The truth is, particularly what I call the Playboy era of polar exploration between, let's say, 2000 and 2008, before the financial crash, a lot of them were rich investment bankers who just played at it. So sometimes people are just really, really, really rich. I'm not that guy. I wish I was, because I would like to think that I would spend the money wisely and usefully. But no, I'm not one of those guys who is a trust fund kid or anything like that. I come from a lovely, supportive family, but no trust fund, sadly. Anywho, that will be it. Thanks very much, everyone. I will hopefully now press the right button that doesn't delete the whole thing. Have a good evening or day, or if you're in the Far East, have a good sleep, and see you in the morning. Actually, no, probably shouldn't see you in the morning. Bye.